16th infrastructure group conversation. Welcome everyone. Thanks for taking a look at the slides that we have and paying attention, I think, to the a few really interesting topics that we have in there around how we're scaling security releases, the new use of application demand indicators rather than kind of waiting to see impact, improvements to our incident review, and also some changes in how we're communicating information within the reliability engineering group. See, we've got a few questions in here. Anoop, if you want to go ahead and verbalize your first question.
Yes, the first one is not as much a question as kudos to the team for achieving large efficiency gains. I know it's like way in the end in your slide deck, but it's amazing to see this work happen in a few months.
Good, thank you for that. And I think I want to reflect back out that it's certainly not only the infrastructure group that's doing that. We had to do that along with your team. Not had to do that. We got to do that along with your team in product, and also a lot of the different development groups. So it certainly is something we've got to do together as a whole company. And you're next with number 2.
Yeah, so the number 2 is related to the infrastructure charter. Should we consider adding efficiency into the primary charter in addition to reliability, availability, performance, and scalability? Given that, unlike self-managed systems where it's people buy a set of hardware and then there is headroom in case we want to add features, it's different on GitLab.com.
Yeah, I think it's certainly a good question. Certainly, efficiency is something that overall as a whole company we should be striving for. But Davis, go ahead with your comments.
Yeah, that's basically what I was going to say. I mean, whether we add it or not to our specific charter, I don't really have an opinion on, but this is a company-wide thing, and whether we're supporting that now or enabling that now, like whether that's part of the charter, I think isn't a big deal. But I think this should be part of the company-wide agenda, and we can support that as much as we can. But that's really a company-wide effort.
I think it's a good thing for us to every so often, review that high-level statement about what the infrastructure team is about. And so that's certainly a takeaway that we can take from this and see if efficiency is the right thing. And also maybe we need to adjust the statement in other ways. So we'll take that. Thank you. And then you had a Kubernetes question too.
Yeah, so I'm a big fan of Kubernetes. I was one of the few product managers who was in the first KubeCon in San Francisco, where there were 600 people. So I'm excited that we are doing this. Any early indications on the percentage of compute efficiency that we would derive by moving GitLab.com on Kubernetes? And the second part is highlight the benefits for users and for us as GitLab, if you will.
I can take that one, Steve, if you're okay with that. So I know that's a great question. I wrote some things down in the page that is shared with you there. So some early indications with very rough numbers is that we are seeing around 50% save in the number of nodes that we are using for the similar type of workloads. And what's even more impressive here is that we are even with the deployment system that we currently have built, we are seeing already almost like 1.5 times faster deployment times when it comes to deployments on Kubernetes alone. So as we are going through the rest of the migration, I'm expecting to see pretty much similar results, because for the past couple of services we moved, the numbers were pretty much similar there. The efficiency of how pods are packed on nodes, how the workloads are actually reacted to, is like it's showing that that there are large benefits for us at this scale to continue this migration. So I'm personally most excited about the release and deployment speed, because it takes us a fraction of time compared to what we had before to get things done. But what I think is even more impressive is that we are seeing the application behaving differently because we are able to react to things more quickly as well. Where influx of requests comes in, we are able to serve them quickly, and we don't see the same level of pressure or under components like we would see normally when we're hitting a certain ceiling and so on. So there is a write-up there. So I would really ask you if you could read it up and suggest some changes or ask additional questions, because this is a very rough write-up.
Thank you. I think Sid, you're next.
Oops, I think you're muted, Sid.
Thanks.
There we go.
I had a look at the mission of infrastructure, and I was missing dogfooding from that mission. I think we've seen again and again, if we don't use it at GitLab ourselves, it's a horrible experience for customers. We've seen that with Geo, we've seen that with advanced search, we've seen that with tons of other things. So do you think it'd be helpful to add that to the mission?
Yeah, I think we certainly should. So thank you. That's a good idea. I think we should take a look at that and see if it should be added to that list. I kind of wonder at some point like how long that list gets, but you know, it's a good point that there's a lot for our team to focus on, and as well as pretty much every team. You know, it's got a long list of things that they need to focus on. But dogfooding should be one of the important things. I certainly see it as a key thing that we should be doing. We do have, I put a little side note in there that actually kind of spoiler alert, I guess, for Q3 key results and stuff, is that we've added a couple dogfooding initiatives around incident management, which I know kind of Brent is excited about, and the team's excited about the fact that the monitor, health team, what they're building for incident management actually fits a gap where, today what we use in incidents is kind of a collection of various tools, and like many companies, we've kind of taped a number of things together to efficiently manage incidents, and so we're excited to be able to do that in GitLab. And then the other one is to try out some of the new functionality for Jupyter notebooks in our runbooks, so that those runbooks are more of a live display of what's going on when you're evaluating a problem. So definitely think dogfooding is important, and we should consider whether we put it in the mission there.
Cool, thanks for that. Great to hear the dogfooding progress. And maybe as a clarification why I propose that, I think sometimes dogfooding comes at the expense of availability, reliability, performance, scalability, and efficiency. It makes it harder for the infrastructure team, and I realize that. I think that it benefits the company overall, but it comes at the expense of the other noted goals. So that's why I think it's important to kind of be frank about that trade-off in the statement.
Yeah, thank you for, I mean, it's important for us to acknowledge that and know that there's only, as we balance that, we need to make sure the balance doesn't tip too far one way or the other, and
Yep.
that it's an important balance. So
Totally
you had I'm sorry, you had a question about Vault too.
Yeah, the question was, hey, we're adopting Vault. Awesome. I think that's the future. Will we use GitLab functionality? I think Hendrik had an example. I think my question would be, are we also going to use Vault? I think Vault is now GitLab managed app. Are we going to use that functionality?
I don't know, actually. Yeah, sorry, can't help on that one. But that's certainly something that we might be considering. Yeah, I wasn't aware of this before.
I'll go ahead and add in. I think we're still evolving and iterating on that too a little bit. I think the managed app itself was a good increment, but we're evaluating too, does it meet our needs for HA, DR, and other things? If we're going to rely on Vault at such a high level, we're going to want it to be very available. So the hard piece is the DRI for this. Graham on my team is in Australia, so he's asleep right now. So the best person to speak to it isn't here. But I think we're continuing to kind of evolve our plans, with the links that Hendrik provided there.
Yeah, and of course, the best possible outcome for GitLab, the company would, well, no, the best possible outcome is whatever trade-off you make. But it would be great if it doesn't meet your needs currently, but you're able to improve it to the point that it does meet your needs. that's the whole idea of Dogfooding.
Yeah, and
I'm
I was
not
just
sure. I'm not sure that's
feasible.
feasible.
That managed app, so I think we intend to keep improving it too.
Cool. Thanks.
All right, there are no more questions. Does anyone want to just verbalize a question? And I'll use a little bit of time here and then ask for questions again. If you happen to think of one, take a minute to welcome Andrew Thomas, who joined us recently, and he's the product manager representing infrastructure. So it's been great to have Andrew on board over the past few weeks and really dive into a number of different initiatives that we've got going on. So welcome, Andrew.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Any other questions anyone wants to verbalize?
Yeah. Our availability was 99.5%. I think our goal is 99.95%. So we're an order of magnitude off. However, I feel like we're greatly improving. We're doing better than the competition right now. But how do you see the timeline getting that last order of magnitude?
Yeah, I think I'll add something here, and then I know Brett's got a lot of interest in this area and everything. Right now, we've had a lot of focus, and I think that the work that we've been doing is a combination of things to make sure that there's better awareness overall, not just within infrastructure, but the things that we're doing, if there's better awareness for everyone involved, for product, for the development stage teams, within quality, of the fact that the number was 99.5, which doesn't sound good at all. I don't like the fact that it's there, and I think for most people, they understand that that's not where we want to be. And going past that, understanding better as we go forward why it's that number, like what are the details that led to that number in various incidents, what does the trending look like, and most importantly, like what are the specific priority corrective actions that we need to prioritize getting in place so that that number doesn't continue to be there. Those corrective actions represent a way for us to prevent future outages. And so I think one of our overall intents is to, through the transparency of all of those things and having people engage in all of that information to basically, motivate the work towards corrective actions and other planning going forward that ends up increasing that number. So that's a kind of a high level thing. Brent, if you want to, I know you've got a lot of information.
Yeah, well, I'm just really bad at typing and talking, but what I was going to add, and Maren, thanks for calling out the last 7 days, because it actually looks way better than the previous 7 days. As Steve said, it's multifaceted. We're paying better, we're starting to pay better attention to corrective actions. And so a few of the things that we've done differently over the last few weeks is how we handle incidents and the outcomes, and talking about them, and maybe sort of rocking the boat a little bit when it comes to synchronous meetings, but purposefully having synchronous meetings on incidents where it matters to walk through and make sure that we're shaking it. Did we get every lesson learned out of it? Did we get every corrective action out of that? And then adding to that, Alberto's working on dashboarding for corrective action. So basically, where are we at? Like, what are our health and our SLAs for our various different corrective actions and SLAs around those, resolving those corrective actions? And then not lastly, but we're constantly iterating and making improvements on how we monitor and alert. We started looking at well, Andrew started working on this and rolled it out, but multi-window monitoring, basically looking at and he'll explain it a lot better, but looking at various different windows to allow for more alerting opportunities to get ahead of outages. And then I think and then I'll add finally, one of the things that we did recently is we met up with customer engineering at GCP, we're looking to short circuit the whole go through Rackspace to get a view into things. We're still going that route to properly get support, but we've been able to meet up with them and get an agreement in place. Well, bit of a verbal agreement in place, but like to discuss like what our proposed architectures are looking like. I'll give an example. GCP had an outage in 2 AZs out of 3 for the region. And so in this call that Dave and I had with customer engineering at GCP, we said, you know, one of our corrective actions is changing how we load balance. And one of the suggestions from them was like, oh, we'd love to discuss this with you. And so, you know, really getting a chance to evaluate our solutions, our infrastructure changes with the folks that operate the platform we operate in is another facet towards continual improvement on that. So.
Cool, thanks for that. And cool to hear that like we're trying to focus on mean time to detection to get a lot better. Thanks for that.
I think, Andrew, you had some things to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to say one of the big differences that came in a week ago was that we've separated the way we monitor and the contractual SLOs from the monitoring SLOs. And
yes.
Previously,
because yeah. I think our numbers are actually a lot better on the contractual SLO than the 99.5%. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And so what we were doing was whenever a service was getting better, we were hiking up the threshold so that we could catch errors earlier. But that was having a bad impact on our contractual SLO. So there's a big dip about 2 weeks ago in the web service. And that was actually, most of that was just us really hiking up our thresholds and hiking them up a little bit too high. And so now we've separated those two things and we're monitoring them separately. And I think that that's going to make a really big difference because one, we want to have really stable over the long term so that we can look over a 6-month period and say, hey, things are really getting better. And the other one, we want to iterate really quickly. We don't want it to be stable, but we want it to really help us improve and catch errors as early as possible. So they've got two very different sort of outcomes, these two thresholds. And so there's an issue there, 10718, where we discussed separating them. That's gone in. And so hopefully now the SLAs will be kind of this long-term, sorry, the contractual SLAs will be this sort of long-term view, and the monitoring SLAs will be sort of something that we iterate on sort of after every incident and try and improve them.
Isn't this the textbook difference between SLO and SLA? Instead of
yeah, it is.
SLO and contractual SLO.
It is, yeah. I've been referring to the internal stuff more as just availability because there's too many SLIAOs. So I've just been saying the internal monitoring is just we're monitoring our availability. But yes,
okay, consider just saying, hey, SLO is the internal objectives we set, and SLA is what we promise customers, and these are going to be two different availability numbers. And the SLA we wanted at 99.95. The SLO we're cool with whatever makes sense.
Okay, cool. I will look at updating that.
And I love that we're setting higher targets than that we are obliged to do. And it feels like the availability is better than.
If you look at the targets, like when we started doing the multi-window, multi-burn rate alerting, we had things that were like 99%, because if we set it any higher, it would send out loads of alerts. And a lot of those now you can go and see, they're all in the runbooks repository. A lot of them are like 3 or 4 nines, and we've really tightened them up a lot. And so things are definitely getting better.
Cool, that's been the feeling. Awesome, thanks for that.
I think Sid, you and I were in a conversation in another meeting yesterday where we talked about the difference between where we've been doing somewhat better recently as far as this goes, but much of that has been unfortunately kind of it's been based on some luck, and what we want to do is get to the point where we have an increased set of capabilities underneath our platform where we know that we're going to hit 99.95 because we trust those underlying capabilities and and redundancy and failover and everything. We have that in some places, but not in enough to say that I know without a doubt next month we're going to be at 99.95, and that's what we want to continue to drive to.
Cool.
The other questions anyone wants to verbalize? All right. Well, that was a great set of questions today. Thanks everyone for your engagement. Have a wonderful rest of your Thursday. Bye everyone.